East analyst and former senior policy advisor on the State Department's Israel-Palestinian negotiating team. Welcome to BBC News. So from your perspective, why does not Benjamin Netanyahu respond to all this pressure coming from within and from the likes of President Biden on reaching a deal?
Well, as your colleague Mohammed said in the studio, it looks like Netanyahu against the world, and that very much validates his point of view that, as he said in April, when it looked like the United States was threatening to withhold weapons, if we have to fight with our fingernails, we will. He sees himself, it's useful maybe to pull back a little bit and say, how does he actually see himself? In one sense, very much like Churchill, like an inspirational statesman who is rallying the people from the brink of defeat to victory. He even before October 7th, he always identified with Churchill. He's also channeling a little bit of Henry Kissinger, who, when he was negotiating with the North Vietnamese, famously said that you cannot win at the negotiating table what you haven't earned in the battlefield. And I think that Netanyahu firmly believes that only military pressure and kind of gains on the battlefield, especially in Gaza, will get him what he wants from Hamas, which is, complete military and political victory. And finally, the third thing is he has always been obsessed with being what he would call a sucker. I remember on the 50th anniversary of Israel, 25 years ago, the banner headline in the Jerusalem Post, the daily newspaper, Netanyahu was prime minister then, his banner quote headline on the anniversary was, "We are not suckers." On October 7th, Israel was sucker punched. And part of it was because they were relying on technical sensors along that border there, including the Philadelphia corridor. So I think his philosophy is we won't be fooled again.
Do you think President Biden should be doing more in terms of increasing the pressure on Netanyahu? For example, the UK suspending some arms exports to Israel. Should the US be doing more?
Well, absolutely. I think on the one hand, Biden feels like he needs to pressure Netanyahu, but he's also feeling pressure. I mean, the administration is running where, it's like coming around the bend in the presidential race. Michelle Obama, the former first lady, got up and stood in front of the nation and said, do something. And Vice President Harris, the nominee, said, when we fight, we win. Clearly, they're not winning the ceasefire deal right now. They don't want to look like Jimmy Carter in 1980 when he was bedeviled by a hostage crisis. There are Americans being held over there in Gaza now. There were Americans held in Iran in 1980, and it made Jimmy Carter look like a lame duck. So what can they do? Number one, they can figure out maybe a back channel, put together a diplomatic dream team outside of the glare of the press, where domestic politics sometimes undermine these deals. Netanyahu potentially is sort of not making the concessions he needs for domestic political reasons.
Okay.